That's it. I think we are live. Hello, everybody. Hello, LinkedIn. Hello, YouTube. This worked last time, so I'm hoping it's going to work again today. Welcome to another sort of coffee and chat, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, whatever you want to call them. Today, I'm joined by the very lovely Amelie Prot, and we're going to be talking all about menopause and the impact that it can have, particularly on menopausal female leaders. Amelie has been a friend of mine now for a few months, and I say friend. We've not actually met in person yet, have we? We will do
No,
one
we
day.
haven't.
Amelie's been working with me in my Working with Corporates program because she wanted to take her message out into the corporate world, and it is an incredibly important message. So just to give you a little bit of a feel for who Amelie is the owner and founder of Amelie Wellness, a menopause specialist. She's a consultant, she's a trainer, and she's also a certified health and nutrition coach. And she helps professional women in particular to feel more like themselves again, often even better than they were before. And Amelie really does help them to kind of take control of their health and well-being during their perimenopause and transitioning through the menopause and beyond. Amelie, welcome to this live. I've loved watching your work grow and the way that you've taken your message out into the corporate world. You've moved from working predominantly one-to-one with individuals and taking it into the corporate market. Tell me a little bit about why you wanted to do that and the support that you give to corporate clients.
So thank you very much, Bev. So as you said, we find my work with Amelie Wellness has been at the start really focusing on the female leaders as on the coaching side and helping them to stay on the top of their game. Um, but having spent over 18, 20 years working in the corporate world in international organization, um, corporate is really at really in my heart. And when I saw the impact that those female leaders was having on their work and on their career, it made really a shift, for me to support, the workplace, and using, my experience, navigating and working as a L&D professional in the workplace, supporting us to create that inclusive and supportive work environment, so we can ensure that those female leaders and the people around them, navigate, the best they can, this stage of life. So
So
yeah.
how did you transition? Because you're not, I don't believe you're quite at the menopause stage yet. Where did your interest in menopause in particular come from, as well as your own corporate background?
So is an interesting one on term of, the where am I on menopause. And as you said, I'm not yet in menopausal, but I'm starting my journey on perimenopause. And it's interesting that we associate very quickly perimenopause with hot flashes, and my journey is starting more on the psychological symptoms and the brain fog. So that's why sometimes we have to be mindful on how we associate menopause with, because we can have a lot of assumptions of someone is or not on menopause.
Mm.
But how my journey started, not really for myself, but as a focus for work, it started with one person, and it started with one client. And she came to me. She was a professional, uh, female leader, and very on top of her career. And she reached out to me to help her with some health and well-being issues she was struggling with. Um, because, as you said, I'm a certified health and nutrition coach. Um, and and as we were talking and understanding what was going on for her, and let's put her name for her, like Karen, just to get a little bit of a confidentiality about her. She she was really on top of her game at that point, but she started feeling that something was changing for herself, her concentration, her confidence, feeling absolutely exhausted. Um, and she starts showing up differently at work, like coming to a meeting and not even remembering what was going on, or losing, the thoughts that, during a conversation, during a meeting. And as she was really senior in her position, she started really losing, that confidence and the belief that am I going to be able, to turn up at work in the best possible way. So as we were try to understand where were they coming from, those symptoms, it became very evident and very clear, Bev, that she was going through perimenopause. So that was a good news. And why is because finally she could pin down, she could say, she could put a words of how she has been feeling, for the last few months. And like over 25 million of other women going through menopause in the world. And from there, um, I was very curious one to understand, about it, even if I knew about the topic due to my studies, but it was not my specialty like it is today. And I literally went on as many courses or webinar, talking to also professionals, and talking as well, to other female leaders who were navigating that phase. And I realized how much the impact it was, one, in their personal life with their family, the partners, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. The other tip of the iceberg, it was impact on their work. And this is what my client Karen was experiencing. And that was really a turning point for me. As I mentioned, I spent over 18 years working in the corporate world, and I felt for them, and I thought I want, to support them, because I want to make sure that they're not leaving, the job they work so hard, for it, because of that transition of their life. And so this is where the reason I started, working gradually, with corporate. Um, and from an educational point of view, delivering training on menopause awareness, but also really specific training, um, for managers, as I'm a strong passion about leadership, and especially on women in leadership training, and then really more specialized training for men's only, and then also, for female navigating, that phase, but and using also the coaching. So it's kind of a, I would say, an holistic approach, the way I work, that is not just about training and coaching, but we're looking at also really a real transformation. Because I think some organizations sometimes can think about a ticking box exercise. Here we go, we do a menopause awareness training or a
Mm.
policy, but there is so much more on how we can transform the workplace and the culture around menopause.
Brilliant. Now, I know as you say, you offer solutions around all kind of training areas, training managers, etc. But I know your passion is around supporting female leaders. Now, obviously, menopause impacts women at all levels throughout an organisation.
Absolutely.
But of course, if the more senior leadership are on board with this and are willing and able to, I guess, show a little bit of vulnerability and own their own menopause, that
Mm,
filter as it goes through that sort of cascade down through the ranks, if you like,
yeah.
it kind of enables everybody within the organization to feel more comfortable
Mm,
talking about what they're experiencing. So just give me a feel for why you think it's so important that female leaders understand menopause and potentially model, what
yeah.
they're going through for others.
Mm. So I think why is important is there is a sense of, for them to understand what's going on, because the one thing that, the common thread, talking with my client, there is this element of I don't know what's going on. So we need to start by educating ourselves, and going back, to, our knowledge and understanding what's happening in our female, or a different stage of our life. And because those menopause symptoms, not for every woman. I think we need to be very clear here that not every individual will have the same journey and the same severity of symptoms. But those symptoms, some of those symptoms can have a real impact, physical impact and psychological impact, which then can have impact on the concentration, on the productivity, on the performance. So by them understanding what is menopause, what are the symptoms that they might experiencing, they can prepare themselves. And so they can feel much more in control of that journey instead of arriving a little bit feeling powerless. It's not they are powerless, but feeling powerless. So is getting one the knowledge and also the preparation, because we talk a lot about menopause when female are in menopause, but I think me as an individual, I'm preparing myself. I'm curious to understand how can I not arrive at war with my body, and I think there is a lot we can do on prevention, and this is goes for everything about health and well-being. It's important that instead of just arriving there where we are struggling, what can we do today to make sure that we are navigating potentially those symptoms? And they might not arrive, by the way. We don't want, to paint a very negative and terrible picture, because it might not be the case. But if we are putting in place things from our health and well-being, that will enable us, to navigate that better. And also, I think it helps, like you were saying, about role modeling. And there is definitely an element that, as female leaders, we have that responsibility, I think, to prepare, the next generation of our team as well. So the more we can be aware of what's going on for us, and be able, to be, say, vulnerable and being uncomfortable, with being comfortable, sorry, with uncomfortable journey. I think that will make a big difference. So yes, I think that's for me. It's why a female leader should know about those symptoms and what's happening. That will give them a feel of taking of being in charge of what's going on and prevent.
Yeah, and I think, that for me was the biggest issue when my menopause symptoms really kicked
Mm,
in, was this sense of disorientation. It was like I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't figure out why my brain wasn't
mm,
doing what it always used to do. And my lack of knowledge, my lack of education around the cognitive and the psychological symptoms that are sometimes overlooked, although we are talking much more about them now. I think it is becoming much
yeah.
more commonplace for people to understand. But I think understanding something at a theoretical or an intellectual level is very different to understanding it from
Mm,
an experience, a position of actually going through this. So how can they help themselves? What can women, I mean, we're talking about female leaders, but we're really talking about women in general. What can we do to prepare? I thought at the time when I was at my peak of my symptoms, I was probably my diet was probably the best it had ever been. I was exercising. I wouldn't even say regularly. I was probably exercising excessively. But what I wasn't managing very well were things like sleep and stress. What would you suggest would be the kind of areas to focus on to ensure that when women do arrive at this sort of transition, this metamorphosis that we go through,
mm,
they don't arrive underprepared, and they can kind of help themselves.
mm. I think like one thing that you said, I was, getting good nutrition, I was exercising. But you did say my sleep was not probably great and my stress. And I think this is the word that, or the thing that we need, to focus on, and is managing our stress. And when we think about midlife, that time of our life for women, if women is it's probably the busiest time of our life. We um We are very at peak of our career. We are managing, if we are mothers, we're managing our children. We are also probably a carer, our parents getting a little bit older. And we are navigating some of those challenges that can be associated, with certain part of our life. And stress is the biggest destructor of our hormones. And this is something for me with the work that I've done, previously with organization. Stress management is really the start. Because I always say to my client, you can be drinking liters of green juice every day, but if your body is totally inflamed and completely overstressed, and you have this chronic fatigue, you can have all these beautiful nutrients, they're not being absorbed by your body. So this is for me the one thing that I work with my clients, and is about how is your stress level? How can we maybe slow down and prioritize yourself, which is a very interesting concept, prioritizing myself. And as I work with a lot of female executive, and really high performing and very dedicated to their work, and not only their work, but also their family, their children, their partner, their friends, but not really themselves. They are on the bottom of the list. So even prioritizing, when we talk about self-care and it's about you should be focusing on yourself. It's a challenging concept to apply, but it's an important one. Because I will often say to my client is, what, and I'm not going to make an advert, for airline, but like Ryanair or any airline, when we are about, to take off, they are telling us something about the oxygen mask, and the oxygen mask is to be put to who first? To your partner, to your children, is not to you first.
Mm.
Why? Because if you don't have the oxygen mask, how are you supposed to support them, to help them if something goes wrong? So there is this really important, for me, focus, is about reprioritizing themselves, as the center of their health and well-being, and so they can navigate, that phase the best, they can. So this is something for me really, really important, and it doesn't need to be just, in their 40s, but for the young generation, and especially, when you are in your late 20s, 30s, you all want to power through. You want, to prove yourself within an organization, and you want to go to the next level, next career move. And the stress is probably can be a really, really, really intense, and recognizing myself in this, um, but that then install a habit about stress, and then it's really hard then, to change the route. So that's why, really, really thinking about how stress, it can be positive and not all negative, but sometimes we need to look at, is it becoming more chronic, that, our body is on a little bit on autopilot,
Yeah.
and that will have a negative impact. So yeah, so for me, the as a that is a long answer, Bev, sorry. uh,
It's fine.
is definitely the reprioritizing you, um, in the equation,
Yeah.
of your health and well-being.
There's a theory, which I subscribe to actually, that, we've been fed a little bit of a lie as women over the last 50 years. We've been told we can have it all.
Mm,
And we can have it all, but we can't have it all at once. We
mhm,
can't have it all at once, rather. And I think that the other lie that's gone along with this is that we somehow, in order to have it all, we have to come at life from a very masculine um, perspective. That now, I'm not
mm.
talking men and women. I'm not talking male and female here. I'm talking masculine and
Me
feminine
too.
in
Mhm,
terms of the way that we approach work, the way that we approach life. And the theory goes along the lines that, if we're trying to do our career from that masculine energy,
mm,
then the rest of our life, we haven't got rid of that. We're still bringing all the feminine into life. So we are, exactly as you said earlier, we're taking on everything. We're taking on the children, we're taking on the caring
mm,
responsibilities, we're taking on the home, we're taking on the housekeeping, but we're also taking on the career, which of course we can do, but we can't do it from that masculine energy. We've almost got to rethink
mm,
how we approach our career. When we try to be superwoman, we burn out, and I think this is what we're seeing an awful lot now. It's not so much that women aren't able to thrive and survive in their career, but we're almost being the expectation is that we will do it
mm,
in a very masculine way, which
mm,
isn't serving us in the longer run. And the theory is as well that when we're working from that very masculine energy, that sort of superwoman, got to get it done, got to get it done, got to keep going, got to keep going, can't make a mistake, can't got to be perfect, got to have the perfect figure, perfect face, perfect life. It's too much.
yeah.
um, and that actually, once when we're trying to work from that energy, we're running on testosterone. And of course,
Yeah.
we have an amount of testosterone, but we don't have anywhere near as much as our male colleagues. And then we burn out of testosterone. And when the
Mm,
testosterone no longer serves us, we use adrenaline. We become
mm, mm, mm,
over adrenalized, and that's where the sort of the chronic stress. And then once our estrogen levels drop, it becomes even more exacerbated. Now, you know, that's a lot to deal with, which can leave us feeling, as I did, and I think as your clients have kind of come to you talking about feeling exhausted, burnt
yeah.
out, mentally and physically
Mm,
fatigued. There seems to be at the minute a sense of the narrative that I'm hearing a lot around menopause. And I have to say, I'm so glad that over the last 3 or 4 years we're hearing more and more conversations about
mm,
menopause and what we can do about it. But I still feel a little bit like the narrative is holding us back to some extent. It's still talking about loss. We're still talking about loss of careers, loss of relationships, loss of life, loss of cognition. It's a very negative narrative. Now, I've come out the other side of this now, having built a business through the thick of it. I've come out the other side and I feel bloody brilliant. If
mm,
I'm honest, I don't always feel brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I still have days when I feel exhausted and,
mhm,
but I've learned now actually to step away from that masculine bang, 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 got to get it done and take the time I need. I've just come back off a lovely 5-day cruise, which was my opportunity to recharge. How do we change the narrative from this sense of loss, this sense of I'm no longer
mm,
capable, I'm no longer fertile, therefore I'm no longer feminine, I'm no longer whatever? How do we change that? You talked about empowering people earlier.
mm,
What do we need to be talking about to
mm,
give, I guess, to rebrand menopause from
mm.
this loss to something wonderful that we're gaining?
Mm, mm. I think is interesting what you just said, Bev, about the sometimes the branding that we associate, the branding associated with menopause, that is a loss, is a grief. It feels really like a roller coaster and negative, and he is, to a certain extent, for a lot of individuals, and is the journey of that perimenopause up to where we reach menopause. And then when we pass that, when we are on postmenopause, like you're describing, it's a different phase. But even if that first phase can be feel like a roller coaster, we have an opportunity to rethink the narrative on how we can approach that roller coaster and not wait for the postmenopausal to think differently about menopause. Because with some of the clients that I have, one of my clients spent 14 years in perimenopause. That's pretty long.
Mm,
To and I think what is important is, we and in the work I do, we're not trying to say that it's going to be a fun ride, and no, because have that element of, like you said, loss. But as those female leaders who have, and I think for all female, we have managed to navigate life and the challenges of life up to that stage with a lot of strength, a lot of resilience, and sometimes we're not recognizing how strong and powerful we are. And I think for me, the what is important is rethink rethink menopause from a different perspective, and acknowledge that yes, am I having a hard time? But how can I live this in my own terms? So there is a lot of about feeling empowered and in control than feeling, without any power, feeling powerless. So I guess rewriting the narrative is very personal. And I think this is for me the work that I do, in the workplace as well, when we look at those program with those female executive. What is the person, what is the person you want, to be today, not postmenopausal, because you might have a couple of years to wait. So how can I have that experience right now, in professionally and personally? Who is the person that I want, to be? And how can I see that all the strengths, all the learning that I have accumulated through my personal life and through my work life, the resilience, my mindset. I took a lot with female leadership about growth mindset, this identity. This is exactly one of a perfect example. Menopause is challenging our growth mindset, challenging our ability to see that not just as a challenge and I failing in our femininity or in our work or in a personal life, but see that differently. What can I learn from it? How can I use my menopause journey as a power force to the woman that I want to be today and tomorrow? So it's a lot about reframing,
Mm.
and how can we create, those positive intention for this journey? Because what I've seen with my client, um, is they having a completely rebirth, is a bit the phoenix, uh, but because they feel even greater, where they were in their 30s, because they have that knowledge, they have this understanding of who they are, and now they know what they don't want, which is a big one. This opportunity to reprioritizing things, refocus on what matters to them, and that giving them, much more positive perspective on what do they need to adapt, what do they need, to share with the organization, what do they need to communicate, with, their team, and how they can navigate that as a, not as an individual only, but more like that. How do they build that support function within the workplace, but also within their personal life?
Mm.
So yeah, so it's a real work of reframing that journey that is unique, to you, and developing an action plan. So for me, I'm very much on what is the roadmap for you, what it looks like. We're not looking at a 20 years roadmap because this isn't realistic, but what is maybe those next 6 months is going to look like, the next year, and what we need, to put in place for for them, to navigate that phase. Um, and then there's a lot of things on what do they do on terms of their health and well-being, like I mentioned, the stress. Are they tracking? They I go in details, but knowing better the body, because I always said my client, we know better than anyone our body, but we sometimes forget to listen to it,
Mm.
and what is telling us, what is the signals when we had a tough day at work, a lot of meeting back to back. I call them marathon meetings, when there is probably not a space to have to go to the bathroom, for a wee or having a glass of water. And we keep pushing. We might go to the gym, go for a run. It might not be the useful thing, or go to meet with friends because we said we will do it. So there is a lot of that prioritizing, maybe, thinking, am I not going to do that? I might do maybe just having a bath.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a time it's almost a time to become a little bit more selfish. Our
That's
earlier
the
adult
word.
years are are very much about give, and estrogen helps us to be that kind of giving, empathetic, understanding, nurturing. It's the nurturing hormone, and as we're losing that, I think sometimes we struggle with the identity change. That actually, it's our time now. We can leave that nurturing to an extent. I'm not suggesting we
Mm,
turn into complete bitches. I don't mean that, but we've got this opportunity to kind of hand that mantle on to the younger women who it's their time for, and actually take our time now to become a little bit more self-focused.
mm.
I say self-focused rather than selfish because I think
Selfish,
selfish has
exactly.
bad connotations, but we should be selfish to an extent, certainly self-focused, so that we can, we've got this incredible amount of knowledge, wisdom, skill, intuition, everything that we've built up over a lifetime that we can now take into our next chapter. And yeah, we let's not underestimate the roller coaster that we are going through, because for many of us, not all of us, as you say, but for
No,
many of us,
exactly.
it is a bit of a roller coaster.
Mm, mm, mm.
But a big part of navigating that roller coaster is our own beliefs,
Mm,
our own expectations on ourselves, and our
mm.
own boundaries. I think we definitely
Yeah,
have to get better at putting our own boundaries in
yeah,
place.
yeah.
Um, Brilliant. So, can you tell me a little bit more? I know you're running a free webinar this
Hmm.
Friday.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about who it's for, what you cover, and why people out there who may listen to this should join you.
Mm. So I think first is to start with the reason why am I doing this webinar. And the webinar is to support organization supporting those individual navigating menopause. So if we want to have that positive impact in the workplace, we need to empower the people who are supporting them in the first place. So the so this webinar is for HR leaders, DI leaders, and also well-being leaders who are trying to understand what do they need to do to support menopause in their workplace. um, and sometimes it starts so by understanding what it is, and I know there is a lot of information, but you will believe that sometimes we're not sure exactly, yes, what is menopause, but also the different type of menopause. And I think because we have this very quickly, we can make an assumption that is a natural menopause. So there is a lot of other type of menopause that individual can be arriving to. And then is an opportunity as well to share, how can we develop, this positive and inclusive culture for menopause. So then we give some ideas, to those people leader, where to start. Or if they started already, they have a policy or they have already a menopause awareness, then what's next? Because what I see a lot with organization is we start somewhere where we have the intention, positive intention. Like I said, we did a menopause awareness workshop, but how do we sustain the momentum? And especially we are in November, and October was a big focus on menopause. Everybody's talking about it. Is it in the center of the well-being calendar? And then that's it. But
Mm,
menopause is not just one day, it's not just one month, it's 365 days of the year for individuals and going through menopause, but also the colleagues. So the workshop, it's a great opportunity for them, to kickstart or to continue their journey, and see what else can they do. Um, that's why I'm doing this webinar, and also hearing what I found very useful, Bev, is hearing where they are now, what they've done that has been working, what have not been working. So I
mm,
love having their voice, as well. So then, I understand the evolution of that topic that I'm very passionate about within the workplace, because we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years so many things moving, and it's great. And I think we can learn from best practices, and I think this is the other work work that I do with organization by them talking to each other. So we are not sometimes trying to reinvent the wheel, but what is
Yeah.
working, what is not working.
Brilliant. So that's on this Friday, the
Friday,
17th.
Friday at 11 a.m. So is just before lunchtime, and we have an opportunity, and is an hour,
Brilliant.
and is live, and is free. And this is my way, to give back, to the organization and to this people leader.
Brilliant. Well, if you give me a link to the registration page, I'll drop that in the comments both on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to go and join that, I know the work that Amelie does. I know it'll be value packed. I think sometimes with organizations, they know they need to do something, but they don't know where to start
Yeah,
or
yeah.
how to approach this. So Amelie's webinar will be a great stepping stone into what next. And because, as you say, you have different organizations coming in, and they'll all be at a different stage in their
Mhm.
organizational menopause journey. It's sharing that best practice, sharing what worked, what didn't work, the impact that it's had. Such
Yeah.
a lot of value in that hour. So if you are in the HR world, L&D world, the well-being world, the corporate world, do head along and register for Amelie's workshop, because I know that you will get a lot out of it. Amelie, it's been brilliant watching your journey evolve.
Thank you.
This is a space that really does still need to have people coming into it and raising the profile of menopause in the workplace. I think we have to understand that menopause, as much as we would love to contain the impact of menopause to the home and become a completely different person when we come into work, it doesn't work like that. We
Mm-mm,
cannot
mm-mm.
compartmentalize our lives. Menopause impacts not just the person experiencing it, but partners,
Yeah.
family, friends, and work colleagues as well. And when
Mhm.
we consider that more than 80% of those experiencing menopause are in work, it makes absolute sense for organizations to really understand how they can support and keep their menopausal workforce performing at their best. And I know you do amazing work to help that happen. Amelie, thank you so much for
Well, thank
joining
you
me. I
so much.
hope if you've watched this, if you're watching this on replay, if you've got comments, drop them in the comments section, and we will I'll try that again. Blah, blah, blah. We will respond. If you've got questions for either Amelie or for me,
Mm-mm.
do please drop them in there as well. And if working with corporate organizations is something that you're interested in, if you're a wellness practitioner in any discipline, and you're wanting to do exactly what Amelie is doing now and getting your message in front of a corporate audience, drop me a DM. The doors are closing this Friday on my Working with Corporates program, which is designed to give you a strategy to help you navigate the sometimes confusing world of how to get in front of corporate clients. Give me a shout. I'm more than happy to chat through that. I remember, Amelie, you once said it was like having me sat on your shoulder, reminding you what to do, which was lovely. I'm probably not very comfortable for you, but brilliant. Amelie, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Is there
much. Thank you
anything
so much.
last comment you want to add before we close?
No, I think, I just want, to support those individuals, to not think that is, like we said, is the end of their career and the end of their life, but a great new chapter, and they have the power, to decide how do they want, that chapter to start. And so that's why. So I think is that's why I'm very passionate about this. So
Yeah,
if you have any question, feel free. Don't stay feeling alone and powerless, because there is solutions and there is options.
absolutely.
Thank you so
Brilliant.
much, Bev. It's
Amelie,
been a pleasure.
thank you. Take care,
Take care.
everyone.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much. Bye.
listening. Bye bye.